a long time ago, before the internet and the television. In the year 1897, the Benin Kingdom stood as a beacon of order and artistry in West Africa. Its wide streets, tall walls, and sacred moats spoke of a people who had mastered the art of building not only cities but also legacies. Benin City was alive with rhythm. Traders filled the markets with red coral beads, carved ivory, and palm oil. Families gathered under the evening sun, called Ibota, to hear elders tell ancient stories. At the center stood the Grand Palace, home of the Oba, where tradition and authority flowed like a steady river. The kingdom was famous for its artistry. The bronze plaques, cast with exquisite skill, told the story of rulers, warriors, festivals, and spirits. They were not just art, they were living history. Oba Ovonramwen Nogbesi, ruler of the day, was regarded not merely as a king but as a sacred bridge between the people and the divine. His presence was both political and spiritual, a reminder that the throne of Benin was more than earthly power. Beyond the kingdom, however, tides were shifting. The Oyibo Empire, expanding its reach across Africa, had long desired the resources of Benin, its palm oil, its ivory, and its treasures. For years, they sent messengers and traders, pressing the Oba to grant open access. But the Oba refused. Benin's sovereignty was sacred, and its traditions were not transactional. Among the Oyibo officials was James Robert Phillips, who believed the kingdom stood in the way of imperial ambition. In letters to his government, he painted Benin as a non-compliant entity. In late 1896, Phillips organized what he called a peaceful mission. But behind the name was an advance of men more prepared for force than dialogue. When news of this reached Benin, the chiefs grew uneasy. A mission arriving without invitation, especially during sacred season, was no ordinary visit. It felt like the beginning of something larger. In the palace, the chiefs debated. Some urged patience, others spoke of caution. The path they walk, one elder said, is not the path of friendship. If we welcome them now, they may never leave. The Oba, bound by tradition, declared that sacred ceremonies were in progress and that no visitors could be received. A message was sent politely: the roads to Benin were closed for the season. But Phillips pressed forward, ignoring every sign. Convinced of his empire's strength, he believed no kingdom could resist him. Soon, deep within the forest surrounding Benin, the two worlds met. Hidden among the trees, Edo defenders rose to face the advancing mission. What followed was confusion and struggle. Spears met rifles, and the air was filled with sudden shouts and the echoes of resistance. The Oyibo mission faltered. Phillips and many of his men fell, and only a few managed to escape. The Edo had shown they would not be entered without permission. But this victory carried heavy shadow. Across the seas, the empire was not going to settle. They would send an even larger force, not to talk but to remove. Edo elders warned, the lion has been touched. It will return without friendship. Their words would soon come true. In early 1897, the horizon darkened with ships. Thousands of soldiers, fortified with modern instruments, marched inland under the banner of an expedition. To the Edo, this was no expedition. It was an relegation. The people braced themselves for what was to come. Able-bodied men polished their spears and shields, women prepared food for defenders, and priests raised prayers to their Eba for protection. The Oba himself performed libations, seeking favor from the ancestors. But the Oyibo force was unlike anything Benin had faced. The sound of their instruments echoed like rolling thunder, drowning out the brave songs of Edo warriors. Clashes erupted along the paths leading to Benin. The Edo stood with courage, but the power of steel and smoke slowly pushed them back. Villages along the way were consumed by flames and smoke. Families fled into the forest, carrying children and belongings, searching for safety. By the time the resisted visitors reached Benin City, tension filled the air. The once thriving capital was covered in fear and uncertainty. Inside the palace, the chiefs stood firm. We will not hand over our king, they vowed. If the palace falls, we fall with it. But the soldiers advanced steadily, pushing through sacred courtyards and ceremonial grounds where generations of Obas had been crowned. There they found the treasures of Benin, bronze plaques, ivory carvings, Kora regalia. To the Edo, these were sacred objects. To the foreigners, they became trophies of conquest. With the palace overwhelmed, Oba Ovenramon fled into the forest. Disguised and weary, he moved from village to village, guarded by loyal chiefs who risked everything to protect him. He remained in hiding. But sellout from 3 of his court chiefs, and exhaustion eventually gave him to the teeth of the Oyibos. He was brought before the foreign officers, stripped of the power that once made him untouchable. In 1897, the Oba was transported to Calabar, through the Gelegele River, far from his people, his palace, and his ancestors. There, he lived out his days in unfriendly quietly, a king without a throne. Someone who would say go, and the people went, stand and they stood. Jump and they asked, how high? Suddenly, did not have anyone to make his meal. Back in Benin, the city lay in debris. The palace was gone, its sacred halls turned to ash, its treasures scattered across the world. Yet even in uncertainty, the Edo spirit endured. Elders told stories of bravery, mothers reminded their children of their father's courage, and priests kept the rituals alive. The bronzes and ivories, though stolen, became voices of memory. Each piece carried whispers of a kingdom that refused to be forgotten. In museums across Oyibo, strangers admired them for their beauty, unaware of the red sweat tied to each plaque and mask. But in Benin, every missing artifact was felt deeply. It was as though pieces of the kingdom's soul had been carried away. Still, the people rebuilt. Brick by brick, spirit by spirit, the city found its rhythm again. The royal line continued, proving that Benin's heart could never stop beating. The event became more than history, it became their identity. A story of endurance that bound generations together. The Oba's dethronement was not the end of the throne. His descendants carried on the royal legacy, keeping alive the dignity of the kingdom. Over time, voices rose across the world, demanding the return of the stolen bronzes. Scholars, artists, and activists joined the call. And slowly, the world began to listen. Some treasures began their journey back home, sparking hope that more would follow. In Benin City today, new foundations are being laid for a museum that will tell the story, not of conquest, but of resilience. Children walk its streets with pride, knowing they are heirs to a kingdom that stood tall even in its darkest hour. The bronzes and masks are not just art. They are ancestors. They are guardians of history, waiting to return to the land that gave them. The year 1897 did not erase Benin, it transformed it. From loss grew identity, from sorrow grew pride. The Edo people remember not a kingdom defeated, but a kingdom that stood courageously in the face of overwhelming odds. The British called it a punitive expedition. The Edo called it an invasion. History calls it a point of alteration. For kingdoms do not truly fall when their people refuse to forget. And the Edo have never forgotten. Today, the drums of Benin beat again, not in mourning, but in celebration of culture, art, and survival. The story of 1897 is not just about the past. It is a reminder that dignity cannot be forcefully taken, and that memories have breath. This is the story of Benin. A kingdom scarred but unbroken, humbled but not erased. Its spirit still shines, cast forever in bronze, Kora, and memory.